Back in 2022, President Donald Trump, at the time, issued an endorsement of Congressman Thomas Massie. Here it was. Congressman Thomas Massie is a conservative warrior for Kentucky's 4th Congressional District, an MIT graduate and a first-rate defender of the Constitution. Thomas fights hard to protect your liberties, especially the First and Second Amendments, which are under siege by the radical left. Strong on the border and our military and veterans, Thomas Massie has my complete and total endorsement. Well, then this weekend, this happened. President Donald Trump posting this.
Spanking.
This
you
is like
probably
a giant,
have seen it.
This is like a book that he wrote here. Holy smokes. I'll just read the first few sentences. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He's a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. Congressman Thomas Massie voted today to join Redacted. See, he votes yes sometimes on things that he cares about. And he joins us now. Congressman, good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you, Clayton. Listen, I retweeted Trump's diatribe there, and I said, the president has declared so much war on me today that I think he needs an act of Congress for this.
Right. The Babylon Bee take on it was that Trump declared that you are close to having a nuclear weapon. I know you're a homesteader. How did you enrich all that uranium while you're tending to your fruit trees?
Yeah.
If I had uranium on my farm, I would probably figure out a way to enrich it and have some kind of fusion reactor, not fission reactor, and we would be making free energy. But as it were, I have to have solar panels and heat with wood.
I was sitting there. I was sitting there with Tucker Carlson the other day, and when this attack kind of happened, and I became enraged about it. This idea that you're un-American, you're unpatriotic, that you're not MAGA, you're not Make America Great Again. I couldn't wrap my head around it, given the fact that he's endorsed you calling exactly that. So, I know we're joking about it, but at the heart of it, it's just is it true? You're un-American, you're unpatriotic?
No, I think I'm the first America First congressman there is, the original one. Look, I'm against the next war already. I don't want a war in Eastern Europe. I don't want a war in the Middle East. And that's part of what we all signed up for when we voted for Trump. I endorsed President Trump before the election, even after campaigning for Ron DeSantis, because I didn't want another war. And I thought President Trump wouldn't get us into another war. It's hard to say what will happen here in the Middle East. The 3 bombing sites to end Iran's nuclear aspirations might be the 2025 version of 2 weeks to slow the spread. We were going to have 14 weeks to slow the spread. We had a 12-day war. Those are eerily the same number of days. I hope it's true this time that it ends after 12 days. But when it comes to MAGA, I think at its base, it's putting America first. Let's take care of our own infrastructure, our veterans. Let's protect our own borders. Let's do the things that we need to create jobs and a prosperous economy here at home before we go looking overseas for dragons to slay. And so I think it may be the president who's strayed from that message and not me in this instance. Also, he's a little bit upset, I think, about my no vote on the big, beautiful bill. But again, that's where I promised that I wouldn't increase our debt, that we would find responsible ways to fund the government. I've joked that I'm going to reprogram my debt ticker here that I wear all the time to be the number of milliseconds since the president has tweeted about me. And after I made that joke, it wasn't 12 hours later, he tweeted about me again. And, I think the reason he's concerned about me is twofold. Number one, I am speaking the truth. I am telling you what's in the big, beautiful bill that other people won't tell you. I am telling you what this engagement in Iran could lead to. But number two, I'm the horse that's not in the barn. I'm not controlled. I'm not controlled by the Republican Party. I'm not controlled by any president. I never have been. I work for 750,000 people in northern Kentucky. And I think I'm the horse that's getting flogged so that all the other horses will stay in the barn. And when I walked on the floor of the House today to vote, everybody was like looking at me, surprised that I still had some hide on my back after the flogging. And I'm like, no, guys, hop on in. The water's fine.
So will this big, beautiful bill pass? Do you think it's going to pass in any kind of its current state at all? And do you think maybe your message has resonated with the Senate?
Well, there are a lot of senators who are upset with the changes. The bill has gotten watered down. If you're conservative, it didn't get better. It got worse in the Senate in some regards. It got better in one regard. I think they've reduced the bailout for those sanctuary cities in blue states called the SALT deduction, which would allow you to write off state and local taxes if you live in a high tax state or locality. That got better, but we're learning that everything else is getting worse. There's a provision that was in this bill that I fought hard for called the REINS Act, and that started in our Judiciary Committee here in the House. In the Regulatory Reform Subcommittee, which I used to chair, we got the REINS Act passed. We had a hearing on it. But the REINS Act would say that if you have a regulation that is going to affect the economy by more than several tens of millions of dollars, then it has to come back to Congress for a vote. You can't do that by executive order or by administrative fiat. Well, we got a version of that in the House version of a big, beautiful bill, but it turns out the Senate has stripped that out. So that's a bad thing. There may be other good things that are getting stripped out in the Senate. We'll see. I have said all along, Clayton, that if the bill gets better in the Senate, I'll consider voting for it, but I'm worried that it's not getting better. And ultimately, it's about the impact on our debt and our deficit. They say this thing balances. It's further from balancing now after it goes through the Senate. And the only reason they can make it balance is they spend all the money in the first 5 years and promise to cut the spending 5 years from now when most of these people won't be here any longer.
You saw today the Fed held rates steady. They did not drop. They did not increase. So the cost of living is, it's still high. We've made economic progress under Trump, but for how long? So if you're wondering, well, I'm struggling. I have these high interest credit card debts or high interest medical debts, student loan. Should I refinance with my home? Well, you can call American Financing and they can help you make that calculation in real time, because even if you have a low rate on your house, but you're still paying so much interest on other debt, you're not making out. You're still digging yourself in the red. They can help you learn to evaluate this in a smart way, especially if that credit card interest is 25%, even 15%, that's costing you thousands. So this is something that wealthy people know to do, is leverage their assets and make sure that your debt is optimal instead of hoarding one asset that you think is keeping your wealth. It's not. Again, this is one of many financial tools that wealthy people use all the time, but most of us are not taught. So teach yourself that by calling American Financing, having a conversation, or go to americanfinancing.net/redacted. You can call them at 1-866-890-8434, or again, go to americanfinancing.net. But really, it will behoove you to have a conversation, ask all the questions so that you know what you're doing and get that monkey off your back and build wealth instead of dig into debt. Call them. They're saving their customers an average of $800 per month. Also, they can get you out of a mortgage payment or two, give you some breathing room, build wealth, not debt. americanfinancing.net/redacted. Now, I want to talk about this faction inside of party politics, because studies show that the right has a wide diversity of thought, or has in the last 5 years, whereas the left often moves in ideological lockstep. But now we're seeing these purity tests on the right, which is real MAGA versus fake MAGA, the White House posting trust President Trump, people who questioned, rightly so, the bombing raid in Iran were called panicans. Has the right forgotten that it's supposed to be the party of independent thinking, that that's what they prided themselves on during the pandemic? Well, what's happening there is this tribalist test. How do you see this? Why is this playing out right now?
Look, I think you've put your finger on it. This is exactly the issue. Are we a party of a personality, or are we a party of ideas? And I'm worried that it's a party of personality. The purity test now isn't, are you for the same ideas that our party is for, or the same ideas that you campaigned on? The purity test now is, will you rubber stamp whatever President Trump wants? Now, 85 or 90% of the time, I'm in agreement with President Trump because he's upholding the principles of the Republican Party and those things that he campaigned on. But when he gets us involved in another war in the Middle East, or when he increases the deficit, I'm sorry, that's not the program that I signed up for. So you can be mad at me, but I think we need more voices in Congress. And frankly, a lot of these issues are not even issues the president cares about. He didn't necessarily campaign on reducing the debt or the deficit. He just wants to get a deal done. And right now within the Senate and the House, it's the big spenders who are ascendant. They are the ones who get to write the bill. And then the president is saying, all right, well, let's go with that because that's what they came up with. It's not the end of the world if this bill fails. If this bill fails, we go back to the drawing board and we write a better version of it. I think a more conservative version, a skinnier version of it, not a big giant bill that combines everything together. But yeah, let's take care of the border. Let's extend those tax cuts that I voted for in 2017. And let's put the work requirements in Medicaid. We can balance this budget and repeal the Green New Deal. And we can balance this budget and do some good things. We don't have to put all this other stuff in it.
Congressman, we'll get you out of here on this. We know you got to run, but President Trump at the NATO summit, getting off the airplane, putting on a USA hat, and we just did a whole segment that Natali just did a moment ago about, Europe seems to be girding themselves for war, and Ursula von der Leyen is extremely excited that her European allies are getting ready for Putin to invade the rest of Europe. They're on a war footing. What do you hope that President Trump's message will be at NATO, other than what my dream would be? It's like, hey, I'm closing it down. We're done with NATO. But what do you hope he'll say?
Well, NATO can keep going. We just don't need to be in it. I would hope he would say, you all are big boys now. You can defend yourselves. We don't need to be involved in your wars. We don't need to be underwriting your socialism by defending your borders. And if you're going to get rid of all your coal-powered plants and buy natural gas and oil from Putin, then that's on you, not us. That's what he should be saying to those folks in NATO. But, NATO is a Cold War relic. It doesn't need to exist anymore in the sense that it exists now. You've got the European Union. Those folks can stick up for themselves. And Putin, I've got no affinity for Putin. He's a Cold War relic, too. But he's popular in his own country because we keep pushing this other Cold War relic up against their borders, and that's called NATO. Trump should tell them the United States is not going to be in favor of expanding NATO. That's one of the things that triggered this war in Ukraine. So don't ask us to vote for any more expansion. We don't even if you agree with the concept of NATO, and even if you did want to expand it, we don't need any more freeloaders in NATO.
Right. Exactly right. Speaking of freeloaders, you and I both know that we are able to fund NATO, the wars abroad, all kinds of nonsense because of the Federal Reserve. This is something that Americans just don't acutely pay attention to. So you and I and Clayton and the Pauls, we scream from the rooftops, and the Fed. You actually did something about it. You introduced the Federal Reserve Abolition Act. So let's scream ourselves hoarse and ask other Americans to take note. Shall we do that? Why don't you don't have to scream, but tell us about it so that we all get fired up.
Well, listen, for several years, I introduced the Federal Reserve Audit Act just to audit them. That's all I was asking for. But it became so ridiculous that I had to reintroduce the Abolition Act. There's no reason for it to exist. But here's the good news. They're becoming irrelevant. The president is mad at the Fed chairman for not lowering interest rates. Guess what? He's not even in control anymore. Congress is spending so much, and the implication of this big, beautiful bill is that Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the people who buy our debt are saying, you know what, we don't want to buy your debt at 4.5%. We're going to have 5%. You're not as good of an investment as you used to be because you've shown us you have no intention of ever being fiscally responsible. And oh, by the way, we're buying your debt in U.S. dollars, and you are causing inflation and devaluing U.S. dollars. So we're really not getting any kind of return. So even if the Fed wanted to make interest rates 2% or 3% or 0% again, they can't even do it. The free market, and when I say free market, I'm just saying the global market, the people who typically buy our debt, the multinational banks and the sovereign wealth funds are saying, nope, we're not giving you the free ride you were getting before. We need higher interest rates. The Fed may end itself.
Wow. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Wow. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Congressman Massie, great to see you as always. The thickest hide in Congress, by the way. Thank you as always. And I asked our chat room earlier, I said, hey, is Thomas Massie MAGA? Overwhelmingly, they're like, Massie is MAGA. Massie is MAGA. So
when I heard there was a ceasefire, I was hoping it was between me and Trump. I've taken 3 bunker busters and I'm still here. I'm ready to call it even.
Do you want me to mediate? I'm offering to do that. We can get in a room. We can go to Turkey if we need to.
Putin has offered to mediate.
All right. I'll take up any offers of mediation, but probably not.
Okay.
Putin.
All right.
Thank you, Congressman. As always, good luck to you. Thank you for always standing tall in the face of all this criticism. Redacted has your back as usual. Thanks, Congressman. Great to see you.
Thank you very much, both of you.